All right, Origin.
Chat?
Yep. I'm horny. I want to discuss. There's lots of news, news in air quotes for those listening.
Yep.
Coming out.
Start with New South Wales?
Yeah, we'll start with New South Wales. I've picked my New South Wales team. I think this side, I thought this side goes close to picking itself as Big Blake Laurie crosses over, and the boys are fucking fired up here.
Might have sealed it with 5 to go. Kick that.
That's straight in front. Ooh, I'm not going to say they're home, but I'm saying they're thinking about it. Okay, so this is my New South Wales Origin side. Joey Johns released his Origin side. You'd think him and Freddie reasonably close. He'd be close-ish. Also, you have to kind of think about the influence of the media and does he need a few in there that, to throw you off from what's actually happening?
Oh, yeah. He's got to have at least one smoky. That's the headline.
That's right. This is my New South Wales Origin side. No real surprises, but we're about to find out. 1, Tedesco. Fucking lock him in. Any conjecture is moronic. He's the best fullback in the world. Brian To'o, I think, retains his position on the wing despite missing a lot of play this year. Has been back for a couple rounds, but I think Freddie is a kind of pick and stick kind of fella. The centres is obviously where
the chat has been maybe on the other direction.
We're about to find out. That's why it's fun to talk about it 3 hours before it unfolds. The lot of conjecture has been around these centres, and I think from what I've seen out of Katoni Staggs this year, I think he has to make his Origin debut. You've watched a fair bit as a Broncos man.
I think that's the chat's been Staggs and Crichton, but it's interesting you got Graham there
because he was in the squad last year.
Yeah,
and he had a fucking rip snorter. Last night as well.
And the chat on Staggs is, though, defensively, he's been a very unders, whereas Graham, on the other hand, hasn't. So I guess your choice is, do you go with someone better in defence for Origin, or you go for someone that can potentially win you the game? And
ideally you want both, but I think, Staggs has that X factor perhaps that a Campbell Graham or a Stephen Crichton doesn't have.
Yeah, so I think what you've got there might be the other way around, where you've got Crichton's the definite debutant here, and then it's whether they pick Staggs or Graham.
Okay, that's an interesting take. I don't know. Just I'm going off what I've seen, and what I've seen, I just feel like some of the games Katoni Staggs just looks like he's at a level above his.
And you think
that the Talakai matchup, when Talakai was murdering people week in, week out, and Katoni went out there and gave him a bit of a bath, that for me, that reeks Origin capability.
Exactly, and you think in this squad, they will get the best out of him, and he can be supported in there as well, where he doesn't have to, hopefully not make as many defensive errors as he does for Brisbane.
About to find out. That's why it's very good. Another position which is really interesting is this other wing, assuming To'o gets picked.
Yeah, well,
which is a big assumption as well.
Yeah, exactly, because he's only just come back, and by all accounts, his form's been decent. But it sounds like Daniel Tupou is going to be in the squad as a winger,
according to the Twitter feed.
According to the early mail, that's the chat.
Michael Chamis, NRL correspondent for the Sydney Morning
and I've
Herald.
seen a bunch of other people as well reporting the same. So
Tupou played good last night. He had a brace,
and I wonder
under the high ball,
and I wonder if it's size for the potential options that the Queensland side will put together, because they're going to pick between Cobbo, Coates and Oates as their wingers.
Who are all pretty good down to the high ball flyers.
Whereas To'o and Addo-Carr, not the biggest lads. So whether they wanted a jumper in there.
It's so funny because all the this was the same chat last year. To'o, is he tall enough? Is he going to be vulnerability under the high ball? And he goes out and runs for 200 metres in the first two Origins. And
I think it also helps
lights out
when you have
scoring tries.
You have Big Turbo and Big Latrell inside you. So
that's interesting.
Matchups makes games, of course. He's going to have Crichton there, who's a big lad. So I don't think that's too much of an issue. Addo-Carr, he hasn't really impressed too much in this game, and I think he's going to unfortunately get the Bulldogs treatment of, you're on a shit squad, you're not really getting much ball on the wing, so unfortunately your numbers are real down this year.
Pretty rough, isn't it? For a winger, you need
their captain,
everyone inside you to be performing. But yeah, we haven't seen Melbourne Storm Josh Adokar this year. No. Does it cost him his Origin jersey? If you asked me at the start of the season, I would have said hell no. Like pick and stick. But now after half a season of rugby league and all the conjecture, and is someone kind of confined to their system when they're playing on the wing? You think about Daniel Tupou and in a better side. Is he a better one-on-one winger than Adokar? He's got Origin experience. It's a real head scratcher, and I'm glad I'm not a coach or on a selection panel, because I couldn't separate them. I don't think
it's hard, because you always talk about how Origin players just play on another level for Origin as well. So like, can you rely on Adokar being in the team and just playing like he's played in previous seasons?
I think
irrespective of
he's so skillful. Gus Gould, the fastest man in the world.
Yeah, everyone forgets that Daniel has also played for New South Wales.
True.
So
yeah,
he's not a debutant in that regard.
No, no, definitely not.
Do you want to run through the next lot? They pick themselves.
Luai Cleary, I think, picked themselves. I don't think we're even going to...
Haas picks himself.
Don't think we're going to discuss that. Haas, maybe hooker. There was a little bit of chat around Appy Coruscant.
Cook's been good, though.
Probably the last month, where Cookie has just absolutely carved up a few sides. He does things that other hookers can't really do with that pick and run from
beach sprints, bro.
Beach sprints, the scooting from dummy half. I don't think there's a hooker that's quite like Damien Cook. Not to say that and there's another kettle of fish that he's better than Harry Grant or who's going to get the Australia jersey at the end of the year. He's just unique in the fact that he does things that other hookers can't do.
Yeah. Anyone outside those two, you could think that?
Nah, I think it's them two and then Daylight. And for mine, it's Damien Cook, and then a fair drop to Coruscant, and then a fair drop to Daylight. I've gone Jakey Turbo.
It's interesting because on that 10, on that chat where they're saying Adokar is going to miss out, Jake was the other one they're saying that's potentially going to miss out as well.
He's the incumbent, obviously a hard-working, good bloke by all accounts. Does Freddie stick with the incumbent? The problem here for Jakey Turbo is that being a hard worker and a good bloke might not get him into this side, considering you've got the likes of Regan Campbell-Gillard, really, really banging down the door. I haven't gone RCG in this side. I've gone Jakey Turbo, but this is a like for like kind of switch. I wouldn't be surprised if Campbell-Gillard gets into this side, whether off the bench or starting at 10, or does Junior Paulo start? I've given away my 15 now. I've got Junior Paulo coming off the bench. Cam Murray, I think, picks himself. The other edge back rower, I think Tyson Frizzell gets this job, has played a lot of Origin. Angus Crichton, according to Michael Chamis, has been left out. I wouldn't be surprised if Angus Crichton makes this side, but we're about to find out. And then 13, I've got Isaiah Yeo, leading Dally M, picks himself there, and to stick with that Penrith spine plus Tedesco.
Yep.
Jack Whiten, I think, does get the 14. A little bit of mail coming out on Twitter that Nico Hines is in contention for this 14 spot. We spoke a lot last week about Jack Whiten being the perfect 14 in that he can play 1 through 7 and 13 and back row.
Yep.
Essentially.
Everything but prop, you'd say. Jack could probably play.
Probably.
But then you could say the same about Nico Hines. He's a big halfback,
but he doesn't have the size that Jack Whiten possesses.
He's still big though.
He can play. Nico can play all positions in the back and the halves. I can't see him, being able to fill in if an edge back row
at a
goes
stretch. I think he could play in the second row, but
it's a big stretch.
It is also a big stretch.
Former Melbourne Demons player Billy Stretch.
Yeah, you prefer not to, of course.
I think Whiten gets to 14, but it's going to be interesting. Nico has been a revelation for the Sharks this year. So
revelation for the Storm last year. So and played everywhere in the back line.
Crazy. Hey, 2 years ago you say who's Nico Hines? You go, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Yeah, unreal. So I've gone Whiten 14, Junior Paulo 15. I've gone Angus Crichton 16. I've gone Liam Martin 17. Am I maybe short on a middle forward there? I've gone the 2 back rowers, 1 middle forward, and 1 utility on the bench. I am not sure. The others that are in contention, Daniel Tupou we've spoken about. Tarek Sims was arguably New South Wales' best forward last year.
Well, there had been chat that Martin might be left out of this squad, and maybe Sims makes sense as that kind of replacement there.
Tarek has that, origin built kind of nature.
He's
big body, throws his body around.
And maybe that helps you a little bit with missing your big forward, is picking someone like Sims, as you've got an extra body that maybe at a pinch can do your role there.
Well, and much like the man on screen at the moment, Ben Hunt tends to sort of step up when they play origin level as the Dragons get the win at Belmore 34-24. RCG, Regan Campbell-Gillard, I think his name has to be in the hat, and Appy Carousel we spoke about before. If anyone makes this side that we haven't mentioned, that'd be interesting, and we'll talk about it next week after we've got these sides. Origin only 10 days away.
Yeah.
And, of course, the unavailables, Latrell Mitchell, Tommy Turbo, and Daniel Saifiti.
Glad that was empty.
Yes. Queensland. Sean, you want to take it away?
Yeah, of course. So starting at 1, I had Ponga. Of course, the conversation will be him and Walsh. I think he picked Ponga for his talent. Again, that X factor, and put him in that squad with other elite talent. Hopefully he can do a job there. Interesting take on the back line. I think the most likely would be Cobbo, Holmes, Gagai, and Coates is there as your options. If I think Gagai is probably the only one of that list that's had that strong start with Newcastle and then been very slow since then. So whether someone they want to use like Cobbo's size, maybe play him at centres, and then bring Oates, who's been very good for Brisbane as well, is partner in crime to Cobbo, put him on the wing, and then Gagai misses out. But I think they'll probably stay with Gagai with that leadership and the ongoing, Gagai plays a lot better for Queensland than he does club football, and put him in an elite side like this. So Cobbo would be a debutant in that list.
I think, from what I've seen out of Cobbo, I think he'd be banging down the door. I'd be surprised if he doesn't get picked. I suppose you have to...
I've put him in 2 different spots potentially, and whether they wanted, say, Oates on the wing and put Cobbo inside, so he could potentially get more ball. But, if any one of that list for me misses out, it'd be Gagai. Also means that the Cowboys fullback,
the Hammer
will
Hamiso Tabua Fidel.
Currently not on my list. Might probably be in the squad, but I don't think he'll play game 1.
Is Ronaldo Mulatalo eligible now? Did that all get sorted after the?
I think it all worked out that he's not Australian. So
so he's not.
Oh, well, actually, no, he's Australian. He's just not Queensland enough.
Right. Astrophysics, working out origin.
So he can play for Australia, but he can't play for Queensland. There you go. So 6 and 7 pick themselves, Munster and DCE. Well, on 7, I think it picks itself. I think they'll stick with DCE. Walker is probably the replacement for DCE. Don't think it's this year, maybe in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, I think Sammy Walker is a fair way off taking over the reins from DCE, who has been resurgent, I think, this year. We've spoken about it before, how we've got Cleary and maybe Jerome Hughes as 1 and 2. Yep. And then I think DCE is a pretty clear 3rd best halfback in the league at the moment.
And again, when it comes to Origin, you can't skip over DCE either.
No.
Yeah.
So Grant at hooker.
Yep, picks himself.
Yeah.
Well, the chat
so.
around Marnie and Ben Hunt and the rest of it.
Yeah, so I think that conversation, so for Marnie, maybe comes more into the 14. He was going to get picked and played last year before he did the shoulder injury, but Grant, I think, of course, is the favourite and has been playing pretty well when he's played hooker this year for the Storm. Big Tino, Kafusi, Catewell, I think picked themselves. 13, I think, is interesting. Jai Arrow's been the chat. I'm not a huge fan of Jai Arrow playing lock and playing big minutes. I think maybe a role on the bench makes more sense to him. So then it's Cotter, who's been playing for the Cowboys really
Ruben
well.
Cotter, he's been really good.
Yeah,
He was good last night in the loss.
Yes, so whether he gets into the
tonight's
starting squad or maybe onto the bench, but then also Pat Carrigan, who's been playing lights out for Brisbane too. So they've got some options there. Whoever doesn't start is probably will be on the bench, I think. For 14, I've got Ben Hunt to keep his spot there. I think that makes the most sense. But the Marnie chat there maybe is a more specialised hooker over Ben Hunt. Or there's been some chat of do you pick Reece Walsh as a kind of X factor off the bench? Don't think so. I think they go more of a hooker, and Ben Hunt's shown he can do that job there. And then 15 and 16, 17 could be anything. Like I've got Flegler in there. I just talked about Pat Carrigan and Cotter could be in that list. Molo, some more Cowboys boys, Titans boys. I think the big one is don't think David Fafita is going to get picked.
That's an interesting omission.
Because he's been very quiet for the Titans this year.
I think he's too talented to leave out of this side.
Yeah, doesn't matter. He's average.
That's so interesting. A bloke on $1.2 million.
Yeah, getting paid too much, I think, is the problem. Well, that's the thing. Well, what they've paid and what they get in return is not equal, so which I think doesn't work. If he was getting paid $700K and putting in these performances, people are probably going, yeah, he's playing well. So I think maybe the money's also hindered or slanted the vision or the perspective on what he's actually delivering for the Titans.
Yeah, it's a consistency thing, I think, with Fafita, isn't it? There's times where you watch him and you go, oh, there's the best edge back rower in the NRL. And
then you see times where they lose to Brisbane and go, oh, there's the turnstile that is David Fafita. I think he needs sort that out before he gets another Origin gig. Whereas the Cowboys boys, they've been banging down the door. They've been playing really well.
Form talks, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And then also Brisbane, like some of the forwards in Brisbane, as we mentioned, they've also stepped up, and that's why they're playing. What are they, 3 and 4 on the ladder?
Brisbane and Cowboys.
Yeah. So they've both ascended here. So I think it's good. Some of that good talent, some of that talent that's pushing these squads into those top sides is playing for Queensland. So I think it's going to be a pretty competitive series, especially with, I'd say, New South Wales more injured than Queensland currently.
AJ Brimson doesn't get a sniff?
I don't think so, because he's not going to play one, because you probably, if you're not picking Ponga, you're picking Walsh.
Yeah.
So I don't think
Brimson as a hooker experiment, I don't think was the best last year.
Didn't work out. He's been playing 6 this year, and it's up and down, but you're not picking him over Munster. Maybe you pick him as a 14, but I think Ben Hunt's kind of is the definition of that role currently, so I think they'd keep him.
He's equal second in Dally M voting.
Yeah, it's like he's had a good year.
Yeah.
Scored a try today, so I think you reward that. That's my squad. And Queensland whitewash 3-0.
I'm happy to put whatever money you want to put.
His first game's in Perth, and I think I think Queensland lost badly the last time.
First game will be in Sydney. Second game's in Perth.
Second
game.
Okay.
That's hard for Queensland when game 3 is the Brisbane game. So, they're going to have their backs up against the wall just with the schedule.
Yeah, have to win the Perth game for Queensland if they. Because you think New South Wales wins at home, Perth game kind of siding the winner. They need to win that to push that decider, of course. But I think Queensland's record is not great in Perth.
How many have they played in Perth? Is it
2 or 3? And there was the wet one where they thought Queensland were going to dominate, and then they lost by 30 points, 40 to something. And then I have a feeling they also lost big in the other one. So anyway, someone have to look that up.
Monkey, that can be some work for you to do. And maybe let's revisit that next episode.